All right, let's dive into FinOps, everyone. It's everywhere you turn these days, and I kind of get the hype. Who isn't trying to crack the code of cloud cost management right?
Yeah.
You've been digging into this FinOps education and enablement capability material. Sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely. It's one thing to say FinOps is important, which, who doesn't? But actually, getting your team up to speed, building that knowledge base, that's where it gets real.
Okay, so before we go too far down the rabbit hole,
hmm
for anyone tuning in who maybe hasn't been uh, obsessively reading every FinOps article like myself, like what eye is it in a nutshell?
Sure. Think of it this way. It's like building a bridge. You've got your finance team, you've got your tech team, and they both want the business to succeed. But they're kind of speaking different languages when it comes to cloud costs. FinOps is about getting them to collaborate, make smarter decisions together.
So it's not just use less cloud. It's more like, let's use the cloud in a way that actually makes sense for us.
100%. And this FinOps education and enablement capability thing you mentioned, it really dives into how to make that happen. They talk about giving everyone the tools, the training, everything they need, not just to understand FinOps, but to actually live it.
Right, because just telling people, hey, be careful with the cloud budget, that only goes so far, huh?
Exactly. It's bigger than just cutting costs. It's about creating this sense of shared responsibility. Imagine a company where the developers, they're not just celebrated for shipping cool features, but for shipping them on budget. That's the power of FinOps right there.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light here.
Yeah.
And the source talks about different maturity levels, right? Like crawling, walking, then running. Sounds a lot like my attempts at exercise. Some days are better than others.
Haha, perfect analogy. It's that same idea. You start slow, build up those muscles, so at the crawl stage, you're just dipping your toes in. Maybe some basic training. Teams are starting to track costs a bit more closely.
So
Right.
baby steps. What
Yeah.
would that look like in reality? Like, give me a scenario.
Okay, picture a small dev team. They're probably focused on those initial wins with cloud cost optimization, right-sizing their instances, maybe shutting down stuff that's just sitting there idle, experimenting with different pricing models, that kind of thing.
So instead of like defaulting to the most expensive cloud option, they're actually thinking about what they choose, right?
Exactly. And then as you move into walk, you see more collaboration. Engineering teams are actually talking to finance. Maybe they've got some shared dashboards to track key metrics. It's becoming more of a team sport.
Instead of just like throwing it over the wall and hoping for the best.
Exactly. And then run. That's where FinOps is like part of the company's DNA. You've got leadership bought in, proper training programs. Those cost-conscious decisions are happening everywhere, at every level.
I like that. It's not just a one-time thing. It's evolving. And speaking of making moves, this framework talks about specific actions for different roles. I know you're super interested in how this plays out for engineering managers right there.
Yeah, for sure. They're crucial, especially in that walk and run phase we were talking about. They're like coaches, right? Gotta empower their team to build awesome stuff, but also be mindful of the costs.
Like good, fast, cheap, pick two. But with FinOps, maybe we can sneak a little closer to all three.
That's the dream. And this source you've got, it really highlights how important it is for engineering managers to get it? Like, understand the basics of FinOps themselves. Not saying they need to be experts, but enough to guide their team, make sense of the reports, advocate for what they need.
Leading by example, right? Walk the walk. What would an engineering manager even need to be successful with this? Like resources-wise?
Well, having that direct line to someone with deep FinOps knowledge would be huge. Like a dedicated practitioner who can give them tailored advice, answer those really technical questions. And it's not just the technical stuff either. You need budget, right? To get the right tools in place, and the authority to make changes to how things are done.
So we're talking technical skills, but also collaboration and the power to actually implement stuff.
100%. And don't forget training for the whole team, really. This source recommends checking out those FinOps certified programs specifically for engineers.
Yeah, because let's be real, left to our own devices, sometimes we prioritize the cool new feature over what's most cost effective. Speaking hypothetically, of course.
No judgment here.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. When that understanding of FinOps is baked into the team, everyone wins. Better decisions, fewer wasted resources, and ultimately, you deliver value faster.
Love it. So we've got our engineering managers up to speed, but what about the finance folks? They must be pretty involved in all of this too.
Oh, essential. This isn't just about tech teams understanding costs. It's about connecting the dots between that IT spending and the actual business value. Finance, they're the pros at that.
Instead of just seeing that big, scary cloud bill every month, they're in there, shaping those costs from the beginning.
Right. They've got the financial knowledge to analyze spending, find those areas to optimize, really connect the dots between those cloud investments and the outcomes for the business.
Plus, they can probably teach us a thing or two about budgeting in general, but it sounds like this needs a big change in how finance usually works, right? It's like finance needs to be in the trenches, not just showing up at the end like, whoa, what happened here?
Yeah, totally. It's a whole different way of thinking. And this source you shared, they talk about finance needing to be way more proactive, more collaborative, and definitely more tech savvy than they've maybe been in the past.
So less bean counter, more like strategic advisor.
Mm.
I dig it.
Mm.
But how do we even measure if we're succeeding with all of this? It can't just be a feeling, right?
No way. You've got to have hard data to back it up, show the value of all this FinOps effort, like those KPIs we touched on earlier.
Right. What gets measured gets managed or something like that.
Sure.
So what are we looking at here? Give me the goods. What numbers do I need to impress, say, a skeptical executive who's not quite convinced yet?
Well, one big one is how much of your engineering team has gone through FinOps training. That shows you're serious about building that cost-conscious culture.
Makes sense. Hard to argue with cold, hard numbers like that.
Exactly. You can also look at how many people are actually USing those FinOps tools. Are engineers actually looking at the cost optimization dashboards, the recommendations, all of that? That tells you if it's actually part of their workflow or not.
So it's not just checking a box. It's, are we really doing this? What about for the finance folks? Are there numbers they should be tracking specifically?
For sure. One that's huge is how long it takes to close the books each month. If your FinOps game is strong, finance should be breezing through that cloud spending reconciliation.
Because no one wants to be scrambling at the last minute trying to figure out where the money went. Am I right?
Tell me about it. Another one is how accurate your cloud cost forecasting is. As you get better with FinOps, those forecasts, they should be spot on, giving you way more control over your spending in the future.
So less reacting and more planning. I'm getting it. This isn't just about saving a few bucks. It's a whole organizational shift in how we think about cloud costs, period.
You got it. And that's why this education and enablement piece, it's crucial. It's the foundation for making your cloud strategy both sustainable and cost-effective.
This has been amazing. We went from FinOps 101 all the way to concrete steps and even how to track if it's working. Give yourselves a round of applause.
My pleasure. Glad we could dig into it.
And for everyone listening who's ready to go even deeper down the rabbit hole, we've got tons of resources linked in the episode description. Huge thanks to our expert for dropping all this knowledge on us today. Until next time, happy optimizing, everyone.